What's the address?
911 failed my wife and failed my family.
The final hours of this young mother's life
I came home after I got off work.
Were horrific.
Found my kids in the house by themselves.
Denise Amber Lee was abducted.
A stranger named Michael King took my wife, kidnapped her in broad daylight.
From her home in Northport in 2008.
Proceeded to rape her and then murdered her.
Her husband, Nathan,
There were multiple 911 calls made.
believes she could have been saved.
Multiple witnesses that saw my wife.
Denise even made a call to 911 herself, begging for her life.
But because it was from a cell phone and it was in a moving car, they were unable to find her.
Almost a decade later, technology has evolved and we have smartphones that can pinpoint our exact location. But the NBC2 investigators have learned that 911 centers
Is there an address there?
are behind the times.
If Uber can pinpoint my exact location, why can't the 911 centers?
We are relying on information provided from the carriers. The 911 centers do not have any control over the accuracy that is provided.
The Charlotte County E911 coordinator agreed to let me test cell phone accuracy from inside the dispatch center.
This right here indicates that it's wireless phase 1.
Using AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, and T-Mobile.
So it shows the address of the tower that I bounced off of, which is Technology Boulevard, which is in that direction.
My calls continually ping cell towers 3 to 4 miles away.
3.7 miles from my location right now.
And the dispatcher could not pinpoint my location.
It would be hard to find me if I didn't know what my location was.
And is that because we're inside a building and a lot of barriers?
Correct.
The NBC2 investigators have learned that the system used by 911 was designed almost 20 years ago, back when people relied on landlines. And this isn't just a Charlotte County issue. This affects every 911 call center across the country, including this one in Lee County and this one in Collier.
I called the 4 major cell phone carriers, their lobbying group, and the FCC. I learned that new rules will be going into place to make the system better. But there's a catch. They don't have to go into effect for another 4 years.
Collier County 911. What is the address to your emergency?
What we do is we're able to capture more sensors on your smartphone.
Michael Martin thinks he has the answer to the problem.
So in addition to GPS and cell towers, also barometric pressure, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth information.
His startup company that's made up of Ivy Leaguers and former FCC executives has developed technology that can send your exact location from your cell phone to 911.
And that can really make a difference in terms of the response.
Rapid SOS is perfecting its technology by working with 911 centers across the country.
This is just going to be a regular 911 call, and Bob's actually going to show what's coming in today, and then we'll show the new technology as it comes through.
So we decided to test it out from inside Collier's dispatch center. And again, we called 911 using all 4 carriers.
So this is on AT&T.
And every time, Rapid SOS pinpointed our exact location within seconds.
We can even pinpoint where we are indoors inside the facility here.
While Collier County dispatchers, relying on the current system,
So probably 3-4 miles away.
struggled to find our location.
It's very frustrating. I mean, I'm sure it's the same way for the community, and a lot of that information is out there, but it's not available to public safety.
So several miles versus within a few meters here of location.
Martin tells me Rapid SOS is working with the cell phone carriers and the FCC to get this technology embedded into our cell phones before 2021. But the FCC would not comment on their relationship.
If this testing is going on, why aren't they updating media and updating the public?
I think there's a desire to see those results before they speak publicly about how good or bad it's ultimately going to end up.
So while the FCC waits to release results,
Not much has changed at all.
callers are waiting too
I'm just perfect evidence.
for help that didn't come 10 years ago
My family's evidence.
and isn't coming now.
My 2 boys without a mother are evidence that this is unacceptable.
18.5% of Lee County residents have a diagnosable mental illness. 10.5% have a serious mental illness. Yet Florida ranks 49th in per capita spending on mental health care, and Lee County is among the worst funded counties in our state.
Wandering the streets.
Where do you sleep?
Sidewalk.
That's where you'll find Irving Baby Cakes Howard
I need cash money right now.
when he's not in jail. I tracked him down a year ago to ask him about his hundreds of bookings for low-level crimes.
You're in jail quite a bit. Why are you in jail so much?
No comment right now, ma'am.
Do you know how many times you've been in jail?
No comment on that one right now, ma'am.
It's over 250 times.
No comment on that one right now, ma'am.
After a life of drugs, alcohol, and what those close to him believe is undiagnosed mental illness, his nearly 6,000 nights in jail has cost taxpayers a little under $300,000.
The options as we have now are jail, emergency rooms, and crisis units, which are very expensive.
20th Judicial Circuit Public Defender Kathy Smith tells me that Baby Cake's story is not unique because Lee County doesn't have enough housing or treatment options for those living with mental illness.
What can we do to fix this problem?
We can either fund the jail, because that's the alternative, or we can repurpose that money and fund housing and treatment.
And there are other options, like Hope Clubhouse. The Fort Myers nonprofit offers work, education, and housing help to people living with mental illness.
Before I found out about the clubhouse, I pretty much just isolate myself in my apartment and I didn't come out at all.
People like Angelica Keela, diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression.
And now I'm in college.
How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
She's a success story, but she's in the minority.
We're running at capacity right now, so we need more physical space. Our real goal is to help people become more independent and less reliant on benefit systems or food stamps.
For you guys, is the biggest challenge you face funding?
It's a huge challenge, absolutely one of the biggest.
Florida recently lost $20 million federal grant dollars for substance abuse and mental health treatment. And Salis Care, the largest mental health provider in Southwest Florida, just lost $569,000 in state funding this year.
It's tragic that is where we are in terms of a state.
Representative Heather Fitzenhagen tells me Florida's favorable tax climate for businesses and families is partly to blame.
That results in not enough money for services. So when we have the withdrawal of federal funding like we did in mental health or in any other area, it is devastating.
Devastating for lawmakers and taxpayers, because getting the mentally ill treatment costs less than tossing them in jail. According to the state DOC, housing an inmate for 1 year costs about $20,000.
I'm working on it now.
Lee County Commissioner Cecil Pendergrass says he's well aware of these issues. But if you want to see a big change, you have to email and call your lawmakers.
Me personally, I want to keep the funding for that. But we need to get that message across to our state representatives and to the federal government that we need more help with this funding.
Because there are others like Baby Cakes out there.
I put my hands on a baby. The baby come back from death to life. I have no more to say, ma'am.
Cycling in and out of jail.
Jail is not a way out.
Continuing this vicious cycle and costing you money.
If you're having problems with substance abuse and mental illness, there is a way out.
And the proof is in the numbers. The Public Defender's Office has a program that promotes alternative sentences for nonviolent offenders. And in the 2 years since it started, enough jail time has been avoided that it saved Southwest Florida taxpayers $7.7 million. For the NBC2 Investigators Tonight, I'm Rachel Polansky.
Dozens of people hit with Hurricane Irma, then with identity theft, are growing impatient with FEMA.
1 month after the NBC2 investigators exposed this major scheme involving criminals stealing local identities to get your FEMA money, investigator Rachel Polansky is finally getting answers from FEMA.
FEMA says it's been investigating these claims of identity theft since we broke the story last month. But they say they couldn't tell me that earlier because they wanted to protect the integrity of the investigation. Well, hurricane fraud victims tell me they're tired of waiting.
You have reached the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
This sound?
I got so upset calling so many times, kept me on call for hours.
Has become all too familiar for Anderson Zumbana.
And you didn't have insurance, right?
No insurance.
Who lost everything during Hurricane Irma.
My only option was apply for FEMA.
But when he applied for FEMA assistance online, a pop-up window told him he already applied. And that's when he realized that someone had stolen his identity.
I was just devastated, you know. I lost everything now. I have nowhere to go. My identity's stolen. It's like, what's next?
So he tried calling FEMA and waited on hold for hours before he finally gave up.
I have not heard back from FEMA at all.
The same thing happened to Victoria Barnisi. She didn't apply for FEMA, but she received this letter from the Small Business Administration telling her that she had.
You feel very violated and untrusting.
And after she saw our reports, she realized that she was also a victim of identity theft. So she called and emailed FEMA multiple times, and to this day, no response.
An acknowledgement, yes, we received your email. We're working on this. Some confirmation that, yes, we heard from you would be wonderful.
The NBC2 investigators had trouble getting information from FEMA too, but after some persistence, a spokesperson agreed to talk with us about these issues.
In the early days of the investigation, there wasn't a public announcement, in part to protect the integrity of the investigation, and in part because I think investigators were still trying to determine the scope and the nature of these fraudulent registrations.
Is FEMA making it public because of our reporting?
NBC2 was the first in this area to make that connection and to see that the large number of fraudulent SBA letters coming in could be a signal that there was something more going on.
So these are the letters going around. Take a close look. And if you get one, you should assume that your identity has been compromised. So here's what you need to do. Get a hold of the 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Get copies of your credit reports and think about freezing your credit.
Anyone who becomes aware that there was a registration done in their name with their information and they didn't do it should be suspicious that they're a victim of identity theft at this point.
I feel like they don't care.
The identity theft victims I talked with are glad that FEMA has finally told me there was a problem. But they say they'd like FEMA to reach out to them too.
I would love an apology from FEMA. I think that would, yes, absolutely.
It's been too long. Let's hope with FEMA.
Now, if you've received one of the SBA letters, we've been telling you to call the FEMA Disaster Fraud Hotline. But viewers have been telling me that they've had trouble actually getting someone on that line. So I have a few other numbers and email addresses for you. They're all listed on our website. That's NBC-2.com. For the NBC2 Investigators tonight, I'm Rachel Polansky.